I'm getting old. My doctor pesters me. That never happened when I was younger. Now he says my vitamin B levels might be off, so go get some blood drawn so he can run some tests. When I was 14 years old, I got meningitis and spent several weeks in the hospital. They had to draw blood all the time. At first it was difficult for me. Thinking about my blood gave me an incredibly uncomfortable feeling of squeamishness. I had to close my eyes, look away, breathe, think about girls, anything to get my mind off the blood going out of my arm into that little glass tube. But by the time they sent me home, I was totally used to it. The last time the nurse came to draw blood, she dropped the glass tube while the needle was already in my arm, and blood went spurting out of me all over the bed. I laughed about it. 2 days after I went home, I started having epileptic seizures. Back to the hospital I went. The meningitis had infected my brain, but I got well soon enough. 2 years later, out of the blue, I had another seizure. I went to the hospital, they checked me out, decided to run some blood tests. So on our way out of the hospital, we stopped at the blood draw place and headed home. Before we got out of the building, I totally collapsed, right there in the middle of the hallway. They took me back to have me looked at, and the doctor decided that it must have been the blood draw. I thought he was full of baloney, but this was in the days before the internet, so we didn't usually tell doctors they're full of baloney. But he was right, I guess. After that, every time I had blood drawn, I would swoon, and I collapsed a few more times before I finally got a clue and started telling these technicians that I have a tendency to pass out when I have my blood drawn. That was decades ago. But last time I got blood drawn, I told the lady of my dilemma, and she said, "How about you tell me about your tattoo while I do it?" She was finished before I was. I hardly even noticed her doing anything. She asked me how I felt, and I felt just fine. It really was psychological, which is embarrassing, but okay, now I know I can control it. So I go to get blood drawn for my vitamin B tests. I don't mention my problem to the technician. I know how to take care of it myself. But I guess I was wrong. She needed to draw 5 vials, which seemed like a lot. I think she got 3 before my head started spinning. I might have said something, or she might have just seen me keeling over. She said, "Try to keep your head up." Then she started calling to one of the other technicians for assistance. I heard her saying, as from a great distance, "Janet, Janet, I need some help in here, please." She sounded kind of panicked to me. But these spells have never lasted long. 5 minutes later, I was fine. She drew the rest of the blood, and I don't know why, but I was fine after that too. But here in my part of the world, the labs where you get blood drawn aren't like proper hospitals or doctor's offices. There's no privacy, no doors to close, kind of like a dentist's office with walls between each station, but not completely enclosing them. So if my technician calls out to Janet for help, everyone in the building knows it, including anyone sitting in the waiting room, which looked kind of like this as I slumped my way out of the building, feeling the judgment and scorn of like 6,000 people who had suddenly squeezed themselves into that little office. I guess I can cross Walk of Shame off my bucket list.